Diversity and implementation, chapter 5 is where our discussion begins today. When we look at diversity and implementation, we're looking at several key components: a leadership perspective, a quality perspective, and then something we call strength based or appreciative inquiry type of perspective. So let's get right into our discussion around leadership and understanding leadership principles. Authenticity, awareness, acknowledgement, accountability, and action planning. These are fundamental diversity leadership principles that are extremely important when you look at implementing your plan. Think in terms of you're going to have to take a leadership role. What are the key components I need to possess in my leadership toolkit that help me become more effective in implementing my diversity plan? And these are the 5 elements that we like to think can really help you do that. So authenticity, diversity leaders pay attention to the detail of their employees. They're being realistic when they engage people, and it's a critical skill that really is often overlooked. When we look at awareness, diversity leaders are not only acutely aware of positive and negative activities around their teams and themselves, but they also really understand change. So, as the business is changing, especially from a diversity perspective, it's necessary to implement more or less training to then own that change within the environment and make it an effective and positive one for all. Acknowledgement, diversity leaders, whether they're in corporations or military, government, or nonprofit organizations, should recognize people for the work that they do. And so, within this need for recognition, really at the forefront of your diversity plan, there's an acknowledgement of how important the work is and whether or not we've chosen the right setting in order to demonstrate or vocalize the work. Diversity leaders, from an accountability standpoint, find taking action to be a difficult task. And that's because accountability is not as readily acceptable from a leadership perspective as we might like for it to be in the 21st century workplace. Leaders really need to hold each other accountable, and then accountability is one way to really actually get people back on track. So even though there may be a slight aversion to that, it gets you focused on what are the diversity plan objectives you want to be able to reach as an organization. And then last but not least, when we're looking at diversity and implementation, action planning, the steps that a leader takes that require action. And then when it's time to pull everyone together, how to get this diversity plan endorsed. It's necessary to make sure that we've gone down the roadmap that we built. The leader is a guide, and then we direct all our actions toward achieving the goals that we want to be able to achieve. So, why do we consider quality and diversity? Well, there's a number of reasons why. Employee involvement, being a part of the culture and the fabric that we've built to help shape a better culture and fabric later on, is really lined with quality. Quality is a foundation piece for identifying opportunities as well as keeping us focused, looking at the right areas for improvement and keeping all team members engaged. It helps us with our analysis and bringing people together to determine where we're going to focus and drive the business. It's solution based, which we'll talk about in appreciative inquiry, so it keeps our opportunities and issues at the forefront. From an evaluatory standpoint, we can assess our current processes and systems and look to improve upon them for kind of future use. And then innovation, part of the quality restore process, looking at really continuous improvement and innovation is extremely important when we look to implement our diversity plans. So some of the benefits of quality: consistency, completeness, conformity, less waste of time and money over the long term, clarity about the work, unambiguous to all, less rework, fewer unusable deliveries, higher productivity, then resulting in hopefully lower costs, and then you get higher stakeholder satisfaction when you deliver what was agreed upon. That kind of brings us to the third piece of our discussion, taking this appreciative inquiry approach toward implementation of our diversity plan. So, how do we leverage the strengths? And remember, we talked about some of the advantages of managing diversity in the workplace. How do we leverage those strengths in our workplace, and why should we? Who's responsible for that leverage? Where is the diversity leadership coming from? How do we go from a position of weakness to a position of strength in our organization? And what types of tools might we need in order to do that? So, this appreciative inquiry approach is about the cooperative search for the best in people, their organizations, and the world around them. What does that mean? That means that we accentuate our strengths to create new possibilities. And this is really starting to understand how we should conduct business moving into the 21st century. So, previously in the 20th century, we looked at really how we conducted ourselves and implementation from a problem solving approach. So, we organized around what was broken. We really took little time to be able to expand our focus because it was limited in nature. And then we were strategy driven to problem solve. Think in terms of if there was a problem, then we organized and put all of our resources around fixing that problem. And one of the questions we probably didn't ask ourselves was, what happened to the rest of the things that we were working on in our organization, in our business, in our institution? Well, they probably were on hold or got put on by the wayside because we were we were problem solving. An appreciative approach is slightly different. It organizes around what is working, and it's really opportunity focused. So therefore, we're looking to design and create solutions. So how might this work? Rather than look at a problem specifically, we might look instead at what is it that we've done well and apply that strength to helping us solve or find a solution for the problem that we want to work in. So, what are some of the steps toward working in an appreciative inquiry type of environment? Well, first, what we focus on becomes our reality. That's the question aspect of this, okay? And think in terms of what are you focused on now? Because that's a part or function of your reality. In our organization, something is working. We need to find what that is because that becomes the motivation. And we need to marry the best of what we've done well in the past to create innovative things and possibilities of the future. There's the connection piece. And then last but not least, we learn to anticipate and describe a new reality. And this becomes the creation in what we do. So why even consider this appreciative, strength-based, solution-based mindset in today's diverse business environment? Well, we ask questions, and that puts us in a position to have positive influence with the team. Not questioning, but asking questions that make people think and move in an innovative pace and structure. In order to better motivate people, we've got to be able to address the ideal performance state. And this is a state where we bring our talents and our skills to full ignition and sustainability over time. So we're looking at talents and skills and getting them to run at the same pace on a consistent basis for all involved in our organization. Also, if we want to have these better connection points over time, we need to look at the totality of people as our primary asset in an integrated way. So we look at them from a spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical perspective, not just as a person filling a seat or a position within our organization. And then the environment that we create continues to improve, and we create positive cultures as a result of that. So how do I make this work in my diverse activities? Well, we ask questions of people that really gets them to focus and commit in a different way. We seek out people different from us in order to get a different perspective. We challenge people beyond their normal capabilities. We coach and we develop methods that really start to accelerate the learning process and change within the organization. And then probably the single most important one, we enable people. We support them, we develop them, we train them, and then we step out of the way so that then they can implement in a way that hopefully will be better, but definitely will be different from how we might have implemented our diversity plan. So when we look at students, when we look at colleges, for examples, we look at communities, they are all moving at warp speed. And then this consistent need to perform at high levels is very difficult to do. The U.S. Department of Labor states that we need these core competencies, interpersonal skills, information systems, technology skills, as well as a competence in basic thinking skills in order to fuel and support and sustain the workforce and the economy moving forward. The question is, how are we going to obtain and develop these skills? So when people feel strong about themselves and resilient, we really get a win-win-win scenario. Everyone wins: the environment, the students, the community, the businesses that are involved. There's more passion. People perform better for longer periods of time. This is fundamentally at the core of who we are as a people, how you interact from a diversity standpoint with others, and then more importantly, who you can become. This becomes a tool to really help us formulate our justification in our diversity planning, and then how also we might even approach life. So here's some definitions we might want to take a look at. Leadership, quality, appreciative inquiry. Leadership, the act of someone or some entity serving the role of a guide, an action of a conductor. Quality, a grade or degree of excellence. And then appreciative inquiry, taking a position of quality from the past experiences and applying to future opportunities. So what did we learn in those three today? We learned that we take a leadership role in our diversity plan implementation. It has to be of a quality nature. And if we want the solutions to have a different outcome, then we might consider taking an appreciative inquiry approach in what we do. Here is our thought for the day. Success seems to be largely a matter of hanging on after others have let go.